Hey, good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic. I'm your host, Neil Johnson, and I am so excited to be with you and so excited to break this news to you people. New Hampshire has long been a state of interest for any of you who have followed my channel. You also know that it was a video from New Hampshire where I broadcast something live from Windham, New Hampshire that got me struck on YouTube. So this is kind of a full circle come around. And what's interesting about this too is how long people have been in the fight and how we're finally beginning to see victories. Smash that like if you would as you come into the stream, and please do chat in with where you're from. I see Jeremy, I see Diaz from Arizona. I've got Texas, OGK9. Josh Oliver's on. Good to see you, Josh. Michelle from Duluth is on. We've got Tony from Orlando, Florida. Well, we have big news that we're going to break, and I'm excited to break this with you. And I have a longtime friend of the show and one of the activists out in New Hampshire, a gentleman by the name of Tom Murray. Many of you will remember I did a live stream with Tom Murray, Ken Eyring, and Jovan Houghton Pulitzer back in the day. I think Lisa Mazur might have been on that one too, or was Marilyn Todd on that one? I can't remember. All these great folks from New Hampshire, and I just saw Lisa was in the chat, are going to be really excited about this news. They've been following this all along, but it's great to see so many of you on, and I'm going to bring Tom in. I want to mention though, before I do this, this is a David versus Goliath story. Every time someone tells you you do not have the power to change things, to make a difference, to take on the power of the state, they are dead wrong. You do. Us as citizens are more powerful, we are greater in number, and we have the law on our side. Don't ever forget that. We have the law on our side. And this is a case where a pro se litigant filed to take on the state of New Hampshire. Yeah, that's right. John Sununu and his cronies, his AG, another John Formilia or something like that. I mean, I can't, I don't even want to pay too much attention to these hacks' names because I just can't stand them. Okay. Because they have no interest in rule of law. They have an interest in retaining power. And I get tired of them. Real quickly, I do want to mention my sponsor, MyPillow. Oh, get yourself some towels, people. The premium Sherpa towels. Look at that. They come all wrapped up nice for Christmas, and they're soft, and you love them. Oh, you just sit there and you rub your face against them. Anyways, they're awesome. But use promo code Lumberjack over at mypillow.com for big savings. And now to bring Tom in. Tom, good to see you on.
Good to see you, Neil. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. Did you like my towel pitch there?
I'm going to go buy myself some towels right now.
Well, Tom, you have given me the support. You reached out to me today, and you have now got me clips. You got me the link to the court case, all of that. So we're gonna share video from inside the courtroom. But give us the background on this case, Tom.
Yeah. So this is a pro se litigant, as you mentioned. This is an individual. His name is Dan Richard. And he started this fight pre-2020. So this goes back a significant while. And what he's arguing is what we're all arguing, is that our Constitution cannot be usurped, and the rights of the people stand on a higher plateau. And it's our government that we actually give birth to, in the sense that we're here, they're here. All right originates from the people. And he goes ahead, and it is a David and Goliath story, and he challenges the government and Chris Sununu, and this is the case that finally has made its way to the New Hampshire Supreme Court.
Chris, not John. That's right. Yeah, I did. The Sununu family. Here's the problem: the Sununu family is a political dynasty out there in New Hampshire.
It is.
When are you guys going to get rid of them? I mean, you got John and Chris.
Well, he's doing us all a favor, and I think he's leaving on his own accord. So we'll take that.
Yes, they wanted him to run for Senate, didn't they?
Yeah,
because he's not done enough damage in the state. Now we need him doing damage in the United States. spread that arbitrage from New Hampshire all over. So, so this is a case involving. Do you want me just to start with the first clip, Tom?
Yeah, let's go for the first clip. And
all right,
this is about improperly executed ballots, and we'll watch the clip and I'll talk a little bit more about it.
Okay. Why do we have no volume here? Hold on a sec. Let me try something. Let me move ahead. I have no volume on these, and I know there was volume when I started them. So there's something in the settings here. Hold on one second. Audio.
While you're doing that, I can kind of give the audience
please do.
Quick rundown of what we're going to watch here. So this is just a segment, and this is one of the arguments that Dan Richards is making in front of the Supreme Court. And he's talking about ballots not being properly executed. See, in our state constitution, we do not have absentee ballots come to us until 1942. And prior to 1942, absentee ballots weren't even a thing. And the only way that we get absentee ballots is we have to go ahead and we have to use Part 2, which is a form of government in our Constitution, and it's Part 2, Article 100. We have to change our Constitution. And it's specifically Article 11, under Part 1, Article 11, that we actually have to change elective franchises. They do that in 1942, and they garner 2/3 of the citizens' votes. Then and only then can the legislature write law as it pertains to absentee ballots. And it's important to note that they can only write law within the limited power that they were given per the question that was asked to the voters. All the law has to have the consent of the voters. So if the government wasn't given the specific enumerated power, they cannot write a law because it's considered contrary and repugnant.
When I hit play on that, did you hear that?
I heard that. Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, because for whatever reason the audio isn't playing through StreamYard and it's muting it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add clip. Make sure I'm going to add clip 1 back in, and then I'm going to play the audio off my computer at the same time, so that way people can hear, because you have to be able to hear. All right, so we're going to start again with this. Okay, and I want everybody to be able to hear this. So this is clip 1. Okay, and we're going to go.
We have a conflict with the affidavit issue, which is the evidence that the state isn't following the process, right? The absentee voting requires Section 659:B requires that the moderator of every town examine the absentee envelope and make sure that the affidavit was properly executed. That's not happening. We have a big problem. That hasn't happened since 1979.
Yeah.
So, want to expound on that just a little bit, Tom?
Yeah. So, in 1942, we allow for absentee ballots. That legislature that wrote the law was acutely aware that they were creating 2 separate voters, similarly situated. And in doing so, they recognized the equal protection under the law requirement that they had to go ahead and honor. And in order to do that, they had to come up with a way where, let's say you were an absentee and I was an in-person voter.
Yes.
If I'm in person and I have to present ID, then you as an absentee have to do the same. If I vote in the presence of an election official, you have to do the same. So that legislature went ahead and accomplished that by making sure that there was an affidavit for all the absentee ballot applications. That happened from 1942 all the way up to 1979. And what happened in 1979 is the legislature unconstitutionally added an exemption clause, a religious exemption clause. They didn't do it properly. They didn't go through Part 2, Article 100, the process. They went and did it via statute. And by doing that, it created a simple clerical error where the notarization piece fell off the envelope and they stopped certifying the absentee ballots. But the law that's still on the books today states in RSA 65950B and RSA 65953 that if the affidavit is not properly executed, you're not supposed to count it.
So, and I think what's interesting and what people need to understand about this is a lot of times people say, oh my gosh, Congress passed this law, or my state legislature passed this law. Well, the problem is, people, there is no law that is valid that usurps the Constitution of that state or the United States Constitution.
Right.
The precedent of the Constitution precedes all. That's exactly why we have the three branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative, is because the judicial simply looks at what the legislature has passed and says, whoa, how does that conform to the Constitution? Okay, so like, for example, if you pass a law that says all of a sudden you can't own guns, well, whoa, people, that doesn't quite work because we have a Second Amendment to the Constitution. And it is very hard to change the Constitution. To amend the Constitution is a difficult process, and it should be, because they weren't designed to be changed. Okay, they're not, that's not the point of a Constitution. It is the supreme law of the land. That's what it's for. So should we move on to clip 2 here?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to move on to clip 2. And again, it's a little bit, unfortunately, a little bit cumbersome, because I have to actually find in my downloads clip 2, and I have to play the audio after I play. Okay, and so I'm going to bring up clip 2 here. And it's cumbersome. Sorry, folks, but for some reason, StreamYard is not allowing me to play the audio off these. Maybe because it's just too good. All right, here we go, and here we go.
The Constitution provides in Part 2, Article 32, that the moderator is supposed to sort and count the votes, not a machine.
All right, so what he's talking about here is, in our Constitution, we go ahead and we grant 3 people the duty to go ahead and conduct our election. In New Hampshire, it's a moderator, a town clerk, and a board of selectmen. And in doing so, the moderator's duties are very specific. He's to sort, count, and examine the ballots. So what happened in Windham, had the moderator been performing their duties correctly, they would have been looking at those ballots, and they would have been seeing the folds. Remember the folds that went through the ballots?
Mm-hmm.
That created the largest numerical discrepancy in the Hampshire voting history.
Yeah, I remember Windham quite well after I got wiped.
And so what people don't realize is that there was a bill that was signed by Governor Sununu. It was House Bill 1266. And it was prior to the November 3rd election in 2020. And what it did is it expanded absentee voting from around 1 to 3% on average to over 30%. Now, keep in mind, that absentee process was unconstitutional, and those ballots were not supposed to have been counted because they were never properly executed. They never have the affidavit that is required by state statute under RSA 659-50B and RSA 659-53. They never had the correct execution and properly executed ballot.
Okay, so this now, and if people stick with this, because I know you're going, wow, we got RSA and this and that and all these numbers, but this is important for the background. And what you're going to see here in some of these upcoming clips is just profound, because this is a pro se litigant again, taking on attorneys from the state of New Hampshire, and he is going to kick their butts. And not only that, you will see that he is significantly more confident, and watch how the judges respond to the state attorneys who are not fully prepared for what's coming. This is absolutely, I think these next 2 clips are my favorite, if I recall the ordering of this correctly. So we did 2, right? So now we're on 3? No, 3. We did 3. We're on 4. All right.
So I think we're going to 3, clip 3.
We're going to 3. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, boom.
Why is it inappropriate for the trial court to have analyzed and made a decision in regard to question 8 of the 1976 amendments? It seems to me that it had all the information that it needed to make the decision it made.
With all due respect to the lower court, they were absolutely wrong on every fact and every position they took in that brief. Let's go over 1976. There are 5 yes or no questions put to the voters in 76. The court has already struck out question B, the domicile question, and question D, which is the change in the time.
Okay, hold on one second. I got the wrong video here, because you're seeing the defense attorney, and
that's the Assistant Attorney General, Matthew Conley. You're listening to
Yeah, we're listening to the right clip, but we're
You're
not.
listening to the right clip.
Let's see.
And
There,
just
I'm
to
gonna
give your audience while you're pulling that up, this is a constitutional question that arises in 1976. And I'll go over that after we watch this clip.
Yeah, and I don't know why I'm having trouble making sure we get the right one here. That's not the right one somehow. And I put these all in here in order. So frustrating to me. And that's not it. It's almost like there's two of the same. Maybe that's what happened. Okay. Well, I'm gonna just let this. I'm just gonna let this audio play, and we're gonna just roll with it.
Of who notifies the winner of the election and the month in which it happens. So these things have already been struck down by this court. The Fisher v. Governor struck down the domicile question. So why it still remains, I don't know. But question A, the voting age, was moot. It was already law. It had been passed in an affirmative manner 2 years earlier in 1974. Why is it the lead question when it's moot? If you look at the bottom of the voting guide, it tells the voters that question A is already law. Well, how can the voters say yes or no when you have 5 substantive questions relating from age, domicile, voting in unincorporated places, changing who and how elections are notified, and E, absentee voting. Absentee voting had been law since 1942 and then in 56 when they amended the Constitution a second time. So how that is not in, and here's the killer. Gerber v. King was already settled law in 1967. Article 100 of the state constitution is clear.
Okay, so this was my favorite clip.
Yeah, so let me translate what this all means. Okay. 1967, we have a case, Gerber v. King. And what it says you cannot ask multiple answer questions on a constitutional question. And what they did in 1976 is the very thing that they were forbidden to do. In other words, you can't say yes or no and then put A, B, C, D, and E. That's 5 separate questions. But you're only given one yes or no. So in Gerber v. King, they said you can't do that, but they did it. Now, the interesting thing is, why did they do it and what was the purpose? This was a Trojan horse. This was a way for the legislature to change 2 words, and they're really, really important what they did. They changed the inhabitant to domicile. And why did they do that? Because inhabitant is all throughout our Constitution. And the word inhabitant gives you your political rights. It gives you your voting rights. And the reason why they changed it to domicile is because no longer did they want the people to define, they wanted the legislature to define. Do you see what they just did there? And they weaved it in as question B of a 5 question. A was 18, voting 18. That was already in law. That was a moot point. I think C was to repeal the provisions of unincorporated places. D had been struck down by the court previously. And E was a moot point too, because it was over informed consent. It was B was what the focus was. They wanted to change the word. They wanted to redefine inhabitant. That was what they were trying to do. They wanted the legislature to control things, not the people.
So do you know what I found so great about that too? And I wish I would have had the right clip right from the beginning, but you saw how that, this is a pro se litigant, people.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, they were actually completely wrong. And then he just nails it. And when you watch this next clip, I want you to watch, because this is my second favorite clip, because you watch this attorney from the state just backpedaling like mad. And it's beautiful. So
address some of the substantive arguments, and what is the state's position on, beginning with Part 2, Article 100? I mean, the plain text of that amendment refers to each constitutional amendment, and there were, in 1976, 5. How do we reconcile that?
So, Your Honor, what I would point out in that case is there have been a number of rounds of constitutional amendments that have been passed in that way. There's the 1960s, I apologize, I don't recall the exact year, amendments for the Gerber case. There were the amendments to Part 1, Article 11 and other provisions contained in the 1976 amendments. There were also amendments passed in the 1980s where this has been a method through which...
Has anybody challenged that method before Mr. Richard?
Your Honor, I don't believe that was something that we very well developed. What has been challenged is when there is dissonance between the implemented language in the state constitution and the language that was voted on. But
that's a different question.
Correct. So, no, you're absolutely right, Your Honor. But what I was expressing is that I'm not sure that there has been a lot. I'm so sorry. That there has been a lot of case law exploring the question that has been specifically raised here. I was just offering a contrast there.
Okay. I mean, if you're failing to see the complete beauty of that clip, I feel bad for you, because what happened there is you just saw the attorney from the state of New Hampshire, Governor Sununu's right-hand guy, okay, who's the right-hand guy to the right-hand guy, I guess I should say, but the assistant attorney general to the state of New Hampshire getting his butt kicked. Okay, he cannot even answer the questions that were brought up by the pro se litigant. He doesn't know the years. He doesn't know an example. He doesn't know anything. And these judges are taking him to task on this. They are literally watching before. If there's one thing judges don't like, and I've seen this in courtrooms before, they hate unprepared attorneys. They do not like that. And when they're seeing a pro se litigant, somebody who's not even a professional, somebody who's not even supposed to be able to do this, taking on another member of the bar and destroying them in this sort of epic fashion, it raises a lot of questions. And that's what you're seeing take place in this courtroom. Now you can go. I just had to get that out.
Oh, you nailed it, Neil. I mean, this guy was so woefully unprepared. I felt bad.
Don't feel bad for him.
If you watch the entire half hour, you'll see that time and time again. It's the entire time that he's up there speaking, and the Supreme Court Justice Gordon MacDonald, who was actually a former Attorney General himself, like really went hard on him. I mean, and you could just see, and then in contrast that to someone like Dan Richard, who just had such a command of the substance, and his prowess was just unmatched. And I mean, and off the top of his head, and
yes,
he answered the questions throughout the entire proceeding. I mean, just crushed it.
Do you know who this guy actually reminds me of? In his knowledge of those types of things, and almost like a bit of a photographic memory, is Dave Jose. And I know you've worked with Dave in the past. I know you're working with him on something else, so we're gonna talk just a little bit about that. But I am going to, folks, I'm going to do something else for you here. I'm going to post right in the comments. If you want to watch the whole half hour of the court proceedings, there is the link to that. I just put that in the chat, so you can go watch that as well. And share this news around, because you're really seeing something great. Somebody says we've got a handsome guest. Is that your wife on? Smooth. Okay. But this is, I just, when you just watch something like this, and so many of you are out there going, wait, how do we do this? We don't have attorneys. Anybody can file a case pro se. You as an individual have that right. You do not need an attorney. And you are going to find out, and this is true in all business and in all life, is that sometimes these people who are getting paid, they're just trying to put in some billable hours. They don't have the vested interest. You know what Dan Richards has going for him? Righteous indignation and a cause. And so he goes in there and he delves into it, and he learns the law, the statute, the case law, the Constitution, everything. And he brings that to the forefront. And you are watching an assistant attorney general to the state attorney general of New Hampshire being decimated right before your very eyes.
Yeah, he's a one-man band, a one-man wrecking machine. And, kudos to Daniel. And he'll tell you this if you ask him. he's gone ahead. He read every single election law ever written since 1791.
Wow.
I mean, the guy's impressive, but it's all self-taught.
Yes. Smash that like if you would, people. Help us get some more people on the stream. We've almost got 1,000 people on right now, concurrence. I know we can get it up over 1,000. If all of you would just hit that like and drop a quick comment in, just put in hand claps, because hand clap for Dan Richards, because this guy, what he's doing here in the state of New Hampshire is epic. And what you need to understand the large scale implications of this. Now, New Hampshire has a primary coming up in 2 months. Okay, primaries are happening all over the country. Okay, we have a major election coming up, maybe the biggest election of our lifetimes, and we keep hearing that, but yet the stakes seem to continually get higher. But 2024, everything is on the line, people. And so the fact that this case is happening before that, and that now we have an opportunity to actually not change law. We don't need to change law, people. We just need to see law upheld. Okay, because before we were told about guidance, we saw legislatures change law in New Hampshire. Pennsylvania was another one where the legislature actually voted to allow this stuff. Okay, and that was a Republican-led legislature. They worked in concert with the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania. So again, I mean, we're dealing with, it doesn't matter though. They can't just pass laws that are in violation of the edicts of the Constitution of that state. That's not how it works. And so we need these laws upheld, and we need more pro se litigation in these other states. I am going to be doing another live coming up maybe early this next week, because many of you are upset about Ronna Romney McDaniel still being chair of the RNC. Tom, are you upset about that? Because I sure am. I mean, the woman she's worthless as chair of the RNC. Now,
for a change.
Yeah, we need a change big time. Well, how do you change that? Do you know who votes on these, chairs of the RNC?
The delegates vote on it.
Actually, it is your state party chair, your state vice chair, and one other person, but it's all party officers from the state.
But
there's
at that level, and it's the actual delegates that appoint those individuals. So
yes.
I actually ran for delegate myself.
Yes, so have I. I've been delegate to state convention before. So if you want to see that change, people, we are doing this right here in Minnesota. We have a very weak. It's not that he's the worst guy in the world. He's just got no balls. Okay. He's a beta male, and he won't do anything to affect change in the state of Minnesota. And there's a move right now to get rid of him as party chair. To make that happen, you have to get involved in your local caucuses. So we're going to talk specifically about that. And we're going to talk about, because those moves need to happen all across the country if you want to see Ronna Romney McDaniel removed and replaced with somebody better. Okay. So anyways, I kind of got off on a little tangent there, but this is all part of the same thing, because all of this change happens at the local level. You people get so frustrated, and so do I, with all the shenanigans going on in Washington, D.C. and at the state executive level, but you can't do a darn thing to change it until you start at the grassroots, because that's where the changes are made. That's why you get so frustrated, because you're looking at large problems where you have no solution. You have to look at the smaller problems where you actually have a solution that manifests itself into the large problem. Anyways, we got one more clip to watch. I get real worked up about this stuff, because this is how the change happens.
We share the passion, Neil. We share the passion.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, I'm so frustrated. I am so frustrated. But anyways, I shared the link again. That's to the entire 30-minute live stream of the court proceedings. I will now bring in the final clip here that we have for you, and then we'll wrap this up. We're on clip 5, right? Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. Or were we clip 4?
Oh, no, clip 4. We had, clip 4 was standing.
Okay, so we just did that.
No, I don't think we did this standing issue.
Oh, darn. See, I'm making this go too long because I get too worked up about this stuff. I want this so people can watch it in the after. But anyways, I'm going to just
queuing it up. Standing was the reason why all those cases involving President Trump were dismissed. He didn't have standing.
Exactly.
So this is
this is actually a beautiful clip. This is a home run again. So I'm going to open this and hit play on the volume.
The plaintiff has presented no evidence that he has a cognizable injury in facts or in the law that is connected to anything that happened in 2022.
Well, who would have standing to raise such a claim?
So
it must be legally cognizable. Somebody must be able to do it, and why not Mr. Richard?
So, Your Honor, I think the only thing we see that approaches a cognizable claim in what has been presented to this court is there are brief references to voter dilution. There are a couple problems with that. The first being that that argument was not developed for this court at all. There are no facts to rely on. There's no development of a legal argument there. Further,
there was a pretty short process for development of arguments.
Yes, but there were proceedings, there were briefs before we got to the point of having a hearing in this process, Your Honor, that these things could have easily been more researched and more fleshed out more so that the trial court could have an opportunity to speak on them more. Returning to your question, Justice Bassett.
This guy's landed 10,000 excuses.
There is some speculation on my part here because, again, the state was put in the position of responding to a number of complaints and perhaps not going into as much depth as we would have liked on each, but typically from what we've seen, where a dilution claim arises, you're looking at more traditional gerrymandering cases, at redistricting cases, that's where a claim that a group of people have been disadvantaged and there's real evidence to show that is where vote dilution enters the equation. I don't know that there's been any showing of that here, Your Honor.
But you haven't really briefed standing. You haven't briefed standing.
So not before this court, Your Honor.
So that really is waived. I mean, it seems like, why would we reach the standing issue?
Okay, people, if you could just fully understand what is taking place here. This guy's talking about how there's no standing. First off, if a voter in the state doesn't have standing about elections, then who does?
Who does?
Who does? This guy has standing.
Why even have an election if we don't have standing?
Exactly. What are we even doing here? It's so ridiculous. But look at how ill-prepared he is for the judges. The judges don't like this guy at this point. No, they really don't. Upset. And if you can't read that, you're missing
it. He's about to get called out right now. He's going to get called out.
Yeah, this is epic. Okay, you guys, get ready. It's about to get good.
Disadvantaged, and there's real evidence to show that is where vote dilution enters the equation. I don't know that there's been any showing of that here, Your Honor.
But you haven't really briefed standing. You haven't briefed standing.
So not before this court, Your Honor.
So that really is waived. I mean, it seems like, why would we reach the standing issue?
So because that is an issue that can be raised at any time, Your Honor.
So you're raising it now?
So, Your Honor, we did raise that in the lower court.
Why didn't you brief it?
It was not briefed because what we were doing was we were we were addressing what the Superior Court put into its...
The Superior Court deferred standing.
Bingo.
Assumed without deciding that there was standing. So I wouldn't.
Did you hear that? The lower court deferred it, and here he is trying to lie to the judge and say, "Well,
this is like, God. Oh, this is. I mean, Tom, I'm so glad you reached out to me today because this is such beautiful stuff. I mean, I love seeing things like this take place, and I just love seeing it when these people are so ill prepared and they think that they just should have special rights to this reminds me actually of what's that character's name down in Air, Seth Richer, who showed up in his shorts and stuff. That didn't go the way I thought it would, but nonetheless, it just shows how arrogant these people are.
Yeah, this is the fourth branch of government right here.
Yes.
The unelected fourth branch of government.
Okay, so I'm going to get our last clip in here quick, and I'm going to hit pause here because I got to get it playing here.
Yeah, so this is just answering the question is whether or not they denied Dan Richard his right to vote. And you're going to see the attorney actually perjure himself. Now, this is the town attorney. You heard from the state AG, the assistant AG. Now you're going to hear from the town of Auburn's representative right here. And listen to this. This is great.
The town has never denied Mr. Richard the right to vote in any town election.
Let me start with Ballot box. The ballot box was provided after I was denied the first time. So the first time I was denied the right to vote because if I did not use the machine, that was my only option. And that's where the fight began. Injury.
And was your vote counted in that one?
No, I was denied the right to vote the first time. And this was after I gave the town and the Secretary of State notice that there was a problem and a conflict with the law. And rather than sit down and work and solve the problem, they said no.
There you have it.
There you got it. So this is going to be this. I can't wait to read the final order on this because this has major implications in the first in the nation primary. Because you got to keep in mind, I think we're 53 days away. And if I'm a presidential candidate, I'm paying attention to this right now. And here's why. Because it changes fundamentally the entire process of how the state will conduct this election. Because what's at stake here is the use of machines, whether or not you're going to or not going to be able to use them. It's a constitutional claim. They allege that the machines have never properly got the consent of the voters, were never properly constitutionally approved. They're gonna have to make that determination. The second big point that take away from me is the whole absentee ballot affidavit. Going forward, if the allegations are upheld on Dan Richards' behalf, that means that every person is going to go back to pre-79 and you're going to have your absentee ballot application notarized.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the reduction of fraud and people getting into our elections? And then the inhabitant question, that if you go back and you remove domicile, all those college kids that come into New Hampshire and vote in our elections, gone.
So, and what's so interesting about this, and you and I were talking about this because both of us have, combated Mark Elias on Twitter, or X, I guess it's called now, and I told the other day, I commented on his, I said, you have no interest in election integrity.
No,
I mean,
I have reached out to him personally, Neil, and he has no interest in this case at all. You know why? Do I have to explain that?
No, explain it to me. But here's the thing. So, you look across the country right now. I don't care if it was Connecticut, New Jersey. Where's the sheriff's race that was decided by one vote where they had duplicate voters? All across Iowa. There was another big one in Iowa. I think that gal faced 51 counts. All across the country right now, we are seeing prosecution of crimes in the voting field. And people say, well, that's always going to happen. That doesn't make it acceptable. And that means that you do not have to make it easier for the crime to be committed. You actually have to make it harder for the crime to be committed. I'm going to post a video today, Second Amendment takedown, anti-Second Amendment takedown. That was just epic from a lady, and she was testifying. And it is absolutely, what she said was so profound. I'll get that up soon, so guys watch for that video. But the fact is that gun crimes, they're easy to stop. This whole thing is easy to solve, but we've got all these Soros-backed DAs. And so the fact is they're not prosecuting gun crimes. We don't need more gun laws, just like we don't need more made-up laws in the election area. We actually need to hold people accountable to the laws that are already there.
Right. And that's what Moore v. Harper did. And it's funny you bring up Mark Elias, because Mark Elias was cheering about Moore v. Harper. Had he ever read it and understood it, basically what Roberts and Kavanaugh in his concurring opinion say is, you cannot usurp the Constitution. You can't. And this is exactly what happened in Connecticut. You had two Democrat mayors fighting it out, and one of them got caught stuffing the ballot box on video. They went to court, and the judge basically said, you don't have to prove fraud. All you have to do is prove that the constitutional standards weren't followed, and he made them redo the election.
There you have it. Well, folks, I want to thank you for joining us today. This was just a great opportunity to get together and get some breaking news. This was fresh news, and it's also important news. There's so much news that we cover from time to time, whether it's what Whoopi Goldberg said on The View. Honestly, I don't really care what she said on The View. It's just that there's a certain amount of this that is political entertainment, and then there's part of this that is real. And this is real. It's on the ground. It's happening right now. And this can actually change the entire makeup of this nation. This case right here in New Hampshire, okay? And we've been following this since time immemorial. And it's just great to see things actually coming to the forefront, coming to the fray. Smash the like on your way out. Remember to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Tom, I want to thank you for coming on. And also get your Christmas presents at MyPillow, mypillow.com, promo code Lumberjack. Tom, give me some parting words.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank some people that I've worked with, Dan Richard being one of them, Wayne Say another one, but Ken Iron. I got to tell you this, a lot of this stuff is kind of like, he's like the Yoda of the group, and he lays everything out. Marilyn Todd, I want to thank her, and everybody. This
Lisa's on too. Lisa Mazur was on.
Lisa Mazur is on here. All these people, and I shouldn't name individuals because there's so many of us. David Kiley, I could go on for another 15 minutes. This is just a bunch of group of people, just concerned citizens that are passionate about our election integrity, and we all care deeply about our constitutional republic, and we're just going ahead and we're putting our time forward, and we're making things like this happen. Dan Richard, all the credit goes to him. Did a fantastic job yesterday. I mean, I couldn't have exceeded my expectations.
It was awesome. It was just awesome. It was so much fun to watch those court clips, and people share this stream out there. Get this out. Get this kind of news out, because this fight is not over. It's not over, and it's at every state, and certainly in a number of key states like New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico. We're just constantly seeing these issues. So thanks so much for listening. Again, make sure you subscribe. We'll catch you on the next episode. All right. Peace out.